I've been trying to record this video since like Friday, dude. No joke. No joke. And every single day, something always came up. Some sort of new video had to be made, a new trailer dropped where it had to be top priority. It had to be the priority. So I was like, you know what? Even though today there are two conferences, the Nintendo Direct that just took place, and we had that amazing Zelda Tears of the Kingdom reveal. And later on today, we're getting the Sony State of Play. And I was like, you know what? In the middle of that, I am doing this Afterthoughts. I'm going to sit in this chair and talk about this amazing chapter that we just got this past weekend, because it was a great one. And I thank each and every single one of you that reached out and gave me a comment to talk about this week. I picked out a few of them to discuss here in the Afterthoughts. And what's crazy about it, and life works in the greatest of ways, right? I originally just wanted to post that to my members and be like, yo, members, what would you like to see me talk about in the Afterthoughts? Let me know. We'll do a sweet little discussion. And I accidentally put it out publicly for not just my members, but for everyone else as well. But I got the best of both worlds, where I have comments from both the members and the rest of the subscriber base. So I was like, yo, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. And let's just have some fun talking about this awesome chapter. Now, before we get into the comments, I just want to talk about one thing in particular for chapter 1059 that I have not been able to stop thinking about, even more than the whole Seraphim thing, and that has been on my mind just non-stop, right? Like, just having the name Seraphims is automatically very, very intriguing. But then on top of that, you bring the Lunarian tie-in that is just, you know what I mean? Like, mind-boggling. It makes so much sense when you think about it. You know, they brought in King, obviously extracted portions of his DNA to inject into whatever it is that they're creating here in these cyborg Lunarians, right? And it's like, wait a minute. So Vegapunk is cooking, man. I don't know what he's cooking, but he's cooking something crazy. Then we switch over, we get to find out that it's not only Hancock, but thanks to my comment section spamming Kidhawk, which, by the way, for people who were in that stream, YouTube let me know that my chat rate during the Kidhawk spam was almost at 200. I don't know if you guys understand how insane that is, but normally a 200 chat rate is only for like E3s or PlayStation conference or something like that. So y'all, I didn't notice how much y'all spammed it until I saw that. I was like, good lord, how many Kidhawks were stated, man? But regardless, God bless y'all. God, because I would not have seen it. I wouldn't have known anything about it, because I was just so mind blown from the rest of the things that happened in the chapter that I would not have even considered the fact that that could have potentially been Mihawk. And so shout out to each and every one of y'all, because thanks to y'all, we now have not only Hancock, but Mihawk as well. And this is where it gets very interesting when it comes to this, because now it's like, who else are we going to see be made into these cyborg Lunarians, right? Shout out to Raiden. And it's like, obviously in the stream we talked about characters like Ace and Whitebeard and a potential. Me and my cousin have joked about the Roger clone thing for a long time. Hey, we're not throwing any of that out anymore, man. You know what I mean? Like, obviously Weevil, the warlords are there. Doflamingo, we can most certainly see that being one, right? So a lot of exciting potential scenarios with the Seraphim clones there. And something I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Oda tackles certain matchups, like whenever certain characters have to fight against these cyborg clones, whether it be of themselves or of individuals they know. Like, let's just say that the Ace clone really is a reality, and either Luffy or Yamato or Sabo or one of these characters has to confront that character. Like, what will happen there? You know, normally in these types of stories, we'll have these cyborgs where they'll gain emotions while in the midst of battle, right, to showcase that fantasy element, that emotional element that we all know One Piece has. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing that and seeing how all of that gets executed here in the final saga. So obviously insane stuff there in the Blackbeard and Shaki, which was a crazy reveal. Raylio, Hancock, dude. Boa Hancock. Yo, the last 2 times that we've seen her in both in canon and out of canon, actually 3 times that we've seen her both in canon and out of canon, it's been W's. In chapter 956, massive W. In Stampede, amazing W. The Hancock hype was at an all-time high during Stampede. And then this chapter, holding her own against Blackbeard, basically taking out the rest of the individuals there on her own. Except for Koby and Blackbeard. Everyone else is affected by the ability. And of course, the individuals in her crew. But it was like, wait, man, yo, Hancock is out here, dude. And cannot wait to see the way the anime handles all this content. But what I want to talk about before we get into the questions here today for the Afterthoughts is the Koby getting kidnapped by the Blackbeard pirate scenario. Obviously, was Koby forced into submission where he legitimately took him, against his will, or the way that I believe it is that he and Blackbeard came to an agreement that he would come aboard his ship as long as he would leave Amazon Lily and the rest of the Marines alone, right? That just seems like something Koby would do. Regardless of what ended up being the case there, the most interesting thing for me is going to be the inevitable meeting between Koby and Aokiji. This is something that, of course, all of us have been speculating since chapter, I believe it was 720, dropped, and the connection to chapters 697, 698, when Aokiji showed up on Punk Hazard. He had that very spooky conversation with Doflamingo where we're like, yo, what is going on here? What are they implying? And then we cut over to Dressrosa and we see Burgess talking about, Aokiji, how they're not sure if they can trust him, and all led us to believe, like, wait a minute, is Aokiji with the Blackbeard pirates? Then the Road to Lafitte, teasing the 10th Titanic captain and all that stuff. It's like, we all think it's Aokiji at this point. So if Kuzan is legitimately on the Blackbeard pirates, we're about to have a scenario where Koby and Kuzan are going to have a meeting. And the most interesting thing about this to me is it's going to reveal Kuzan's motivations. And because we all know he's under Blackbeard, if he is under Blackbeard, for reasons that we have no idea what they are, right? We don't know if he's a triple agent, we don't know if he's a double agent, we don't even know if he's any agent, right? We don't know if he's legitimately there, which I don't believe is the case, but we don't know his true motivations. And so, for me, the most interesting part is going to be when Koby and Kuzan meet and they have their conversation. What are we going to have? Because, of course, with Sakazuki, we had a situation where Koby's speech, he tried so hard to get Sakazuki to listen to him when he cried his eyes out and told him that what they were doing there was wrong. And then he had to be saved by Shanks because Akainu didn't care. He was going to go up and swim and take Koby out right then and there. But I wonder if we're going to have a parallel to that here with Koby, and rather than Aokiji fighting him, in their conversation, Koby is going to convince him, persuade him to come back to the Marines. And then and there we'll find out what Aokiji's up to. Because let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that Kuzan was always a member of SWORD and Koby just never knew about it. That's whenever he'll be like, Arada, you have great conviction, young Marine. Step aside. And then they start their coup under Blackbeard, where Kuzan frees Koby and they get out of there and go back to the Marines. Or if he really is out of the Marines and Koby, in a cry-out attempt to bring him back, actually ends up bringing him back because of Koby's words, that would also be a very interesting scenario as well. But then there's also the scenario that Aokiji is actually a part of the Revolutionary Army, a triple agent, right? So then that makes it very interesting, especially with the Sabo stuff happening around the world. So that is what intrigues me and interests me the most, is the eventual Kuzan and Koby meeting. If we have not seen them up until this point, we have to, our first sighting of Kuzan post Punk Hazard has to be on the ship or wherever it is that Blackbeard is taking Koby, where he finally meets up. And I know Blackbeard, he believes himself to be so powerful at this point that even if Kuzan were to attempt a coup d'etat, or that he would allow them to speak with one another, because he'd be like, yo, I'm good. I'll be all right. I'm good. Maybe he might even allow it. Maybe it's a part of his plans. Regardless of whatever the case may be, that eventual conversation between Kuzan and Koby is going to be very, very interesting. And for me, more so, it's going to be the character moments for both of them. Because Koby crying out and wanting to bring Kuzan back, like get it, like really knock into his senses. Like this is your former superior. How are you going to act towards him? Are you not going to hold back and just lay it all on him and be like, yo, no matter what happened between you and Sakazuki, the world is in chaos. We need you back. Like, I know that certain things are wrong, that certain things are unjust, but that's where people like us have to come into play. And like, I wonder how Oda would play a conversation like that, a speech like that from Koby. And if it were to change the heart of Kuzan, or if it would be like Kuzan's test to Koby. Like, all right, no, I got you, young Marine, step aside. You know, like, it would be so great, and it would be a nice parallel to the Akainu moment from Marineford, for me. And so, that is what I want to see the most. And in terms of a direct consequence from the actions of this chapter, is for the meeting between Koby and Kuzan to have, like, real, an incredible character moment for Koby and one for Kuzan as well, leading us into the final saga. I'm not sure how soon we would get this, but it's definitely something that I would like to see. And I think at this point, their meeting is going to be inevitable if Kuzan really is under Blackbeard, but it's just what Oda does with that conversation is what I'm most intrigued about. So I just really wanted to talk about that because on top of the Hancock goatness and Rayleigh and my boy Blackbeard, like, yo, y'all know how much I love Mr. Z. Like, oh my God, I love him. And so just having him in this week's chapter, utilizing his abilities, I just could not believe it, right? And then in the same chapter, we had Shanks and Marco. Then I finally got my Yamato closure. Then we cut back and all the insanity that happened on Amazon Lily. It was just a magnificent, magnificent chapter. Yo, Oda starting off the final saga with a bang. But I just really wanted to talk about that Aokiji and Koby thing to start this off. Now, let's go into the comments. And if you would like to hear any more thoughts on this chapter, the live stream reaction is still on the channel. If you have not watched the reaction, or if you do not want to watch the reaction, only the discussion afterwards. The discussion afterwards, we had a great conversation, you know, going through the chapter and whatnot. So definitely look forward to that if you have not seen it yet. Starting off with the members, first comment comes in from my dog Recon, Golden Santa Hat. I think Oda is preparing for some sort of God Valley incident parallel to occur now that Koby is captured. After all, Garp Koby, Rocks Blackbeard, Roger, Luffy, dog, could be involved. I believe maybe after the next arc, there will be some sort of Koby rescue arc that will reunite the pirates and marines temporarily on the island full of lead, and the Grand Fleet will join in. This could be the incident mentioned at the end of Dressrosa. What do you think, dude? If you are onto something there, and we are about to have the modern-day God Valley incident with Luffy and Koby working together alongside Blackbeard, but not just Luffy and Koby. If Kuzan were to get involved as well, oh my God. And then we were to have, like you said, the Grand Fleet joining. Oh, bro, that would be one of the craziest arcs in the series. The modern-day God Valley incident, man, taking place in the island full of lead. And that's where Luffy and Blackbeard showdown takes place, or at least the first part. Man, if that is the incident that was mentioned at the end of Dressrosa, then this has been something that has most certainly been cooking since then, because even the seeds were planted in Dressrosa between, you know, some more Blackbeard and Luffy stuff, Aokiji stuff. Oh man, yo, that would actually be so raw, dude. Koby, Blackbeard, and Luffy in the modern day, man, bro. You know something? Recon, if you're spitting here, that would be peakest of peak. That would be peakest of peak, and not only would I be down for that, If Oda decides to go down that route, I'm sure all of us would be down for that. Woo! If that's what Oda's cooking, we're not ready. We're not ready. Next one comes in from the homie OMG Golden Santa Hat. Coming in states, the thoughts on whether Luffy will see the missing Koby article and actually go save him. I don't think it will be the case, but are we gonna fight Blackbeard now? It's driving me crazy. I feel you. There are also the possibilities of seeing Kuzan and him being revealed as a sword member with Koby being. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Like, yo, that possibility is so, like, I can see it, dude. Clear as day. Clear as day. But the fighting Blackbeard now thing, it goes back to the last comment with Recon, with the modern day God Valley incident. Like, that in and of itself would be such an amazing concept, though, because we all expect him to fight Blackbeard last, or at least, you know, before the Instant Messenger Sama and all that. That's what, like, throws me off, unless that's what we're leading towards, and then, I don't know, yo. I don't know. But at the same time, it could also lead this to, you know, Koby potentially getting the credit and him being boosted up highly for taking care of a scenario like this. Wait, bro, wait. But no, you're absolutely right. Like, Luffy, if he does actually see the Koby is missing, or Koby has been captured article, and actually go to him to save him, but at the same time, it's like, then there's the Sabo thing too. So if he looks at the newspaper, he would have to see the Sabo thing and the Koby thing. Then it's like, what do you do then? What do you do then whenever you see the Sabo situation and the Koby situation? If you're Luffy. That's why I don't think they're going to see that part of the newspaper. But if they do, it's like, what do they do then? You know? Because if Luffy does actually head off to go box Blackbeard, in order to go attempt to get Koby back, man, that just sounds like peak. Go back to the most recent comment, it really would be the modern day God Valley incident. So many possibilities, but honestly, at this point, it's like, man, that's the thing. Like, there's so much stuff in the newspaper that I feel like we kind of can't see it through an article. But then if we don't see it through an article, how are we going to know unless we just happen to show up on an island like that? Or do we just find out through word of mouth? Like, let's just say we go into whatever island we're going to next, and there we hear about this through somebody else. And like an Amazon Lily, we found out about the ace thing 110% at Amazon Lily, which led him to impel down, or at least Luffy heard the ace thing there. So, like, we the viewer already knew, but not Luffy. And so, that could be a similar situation that we're building here. That's interesting, though. Last time was Ace being captured. This time it's Koby being captured by a pirate. But we're nasty now. We can pull up and be like, yo, let's get it. Oh, so many great possibilities. Thank you, yo. I appreciate you. Next one comes in from Sobra. Let's go, yo. Okay, my theories after the chapter. Number 1, Kuzan is a sword spy and someone connected to Koby's kidnapping. Absolutely love that, and I agree. Number 2, Blackbeard wants the Nika no Mi, assuming he does not get Boa's fruit. Also, I think Boa's fruit is a mythical Zoan. That is also very possible. Blackbeard kidnapped Koby to bring out Luffy. Reasons for the kidnap. Another point is if Blackbeard can steal fruits without killing the user, as he said in the chapter to Vaughn, that they can do whatever with Boa after he steals her power, which means he has that capability, which potentially also means that Gecko Mori is still alive. Thanks, Goat. It would be fun if you do the Afterthoughts video live, but I know you're busy, so enjoy your time. Also, much love. Much love to you. And I was going to do the Afterthoughts live on Sunday, but then the Bleach trailer came out. But, you know, it is what it is. We're here in Lake Swimwear. But very interesting stuff here. So, number 1, I agree with your Kuzan being a source spy and being connected to Koby's kidnapping. 100%. That is most certainly a thing. Now, with your motivations for Blackbeard. Blackbeard kidnapping Koby in his mind is going to be his direct connection in order to lure out Luffy. That to me is very interesting. I love that possibility, which goes into the previous 2 comments about Blackbeard using this specifically to put this in the news and to make this reach Luffy's ears so that he can lure Luffy into his territory. and attempt to take the Nika Nika no Mi from him. And that's just going to be so goated. So most certainly that is definitely a possibility. Now, Boa's fruit being a mythical Zoan, that is something I could actually see that being the case. You know, it could be like the Medusa no Mi or something like that, right? That is most certainly something that I could see happening down the line. Now, we look over towards Blackbeard stealing fruits without killing the user, because you're absolutely right, that was stated in this chapter. So that would imply that perhaps Gecko Moria and Absalom, I mean, everybody wanted Absalom to be dead, but that just, if they were to show up again, we would understand, because we still don't know if Gecko Moria's fruit was taken or if it was just he himself is working under Blackbeard now. We don't know, but we do know that Absalom's fruit is now under Shiryu of the Reigns. He has it now. So it's like, man, if they really found a way to take fruits without having to kill the user, then that just leaves room for individuals wanting to get their revenge back on them. But I just wonder what type of repercussions are there. Like, there had to have been a reason why we did not see, Blackbeard, when he put up the curtain, did that, whatever he did inside of the curtain with Blackbeard, then unveiled it and took his fruit. He said, we don't know what he did. So, we don't know the secrets that they have. Obviously, he knows he has a secret in regards to the fruits. And I don't know if we're going to learn that secret through him or through Vegapunk, but regardless, very, very interesting stuff there, Subra. And I agree, like, in the fact that if this really is Blackbeard's plan to lure Luffy out, and it connects to the previous two comments that we just had, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Next, we have the big homie Zanarkand FF10 legendary game. I think Oda has a nerf in place for the whole cloning process. Most likely, the original form has to be alive in order for the clone to be able to function. I just can't see Ace, Roger, Whitebird, and other people that are dead back as clones. If that is the case, then I can most certainly see that being the case as well. The star eyes indicate that a PX clone has actual fruits. Oh, actually, that's interesting. So that would explain why Mihawks did not have the star eyes, other than Kizaru's laser beam attacks. When Zoro fought King, he stated that King's resistance to physical defense decreases when the flame burning on their back goes out, but in return he gains extra speed. One of the reasons why Vegapunk decided to go for the Lunarian DNA, test subject being Arbor, this could be one of the weaknesses of the new PX. Yo, that's actually a great point. Like, that weakness that Zoro found against King could be used whenever these are mass-produced and when we start seeing them in actual combat. That's going to be insane. Because, like you said, they could be nearly unstoppable, but once the flame on their back starts to go out, it's like, okay, now we're good. We're good. We can actually take care of these individuals here. Actually, yeah, most certainly. And then we look back, like you said, to Zoro versus King. Once Zoro figured that out, and especially with Conqueror's coding, he was able to have that fight in the bag. So yeah, actually, 100%. And if that is one of the weaknesses, then we're going to figure that out pretty soon, unless we're led to believe that's one of the weaknesses, and then it's like a fake out to where, no, they knew this was one of the weaknesses of the Lunarians, but it's not going to be a weakness of the Seraphims. Where they're going to be like, no, these individuals don't have that weakness. And it makes them even more dangerous because they do not have that weakness. That's also a very interesting take that we could have on this situation here. So thank you for that, yo. Plastic Sport comes in and says, my personal theory is that in the Vegapunk lab where Kaido saved King, they were extracting Lunarian DNA to make pacifist versions of them 100%. I think they probably combined that Lunarian DNA with the DNA of the Warlords, hence the reason one looked like Boa. Not too sure on the second part though, considering how hard it would be to get the Warlord DNA. Now, that's the thing that has me also like, how do they get this DNA? Because for me, I think that's the only way they could have made those, is by having the DNA of these warlords. So it's like, how do they get it from Mihawk? How do they get it from Hancock? I mean, Hancock obviously was captured in the Holy Land, but what about Mihawk? So it's like, I do believe that they would need both the Lunarian DNA and the whoever's DNA they're going to be cloning in order to create this. But if they don't need the DNA, that means that they could make this out of anyone. That's why I do believe they need the DNA. And so I'm 100% with you there, though, in regards to this was started back with the King and Kaido test, which means there has to be a Kaido clone out there as well, which is going to be terrifying. Dude, a Kaido clone? And I know with the fruit they attempted to, I'm going to assume that the artificial fruit they created, they originally wanted to feed that into the Kaido clone, right? To have their own Kaido. But instead Momonosuke ate it. So, if that's the case, then that would have been crazy. The Kaido clone having Kaido's fruit. That would have been nuts. That would have been nuts. So, thank you, yo. Akainu One Piece Treasure Cruise states, I had a crazy thought that I'm not necessarily believing will happen, but it's a crazy thought overall. What if Blackbeard captures Koby, then Lafitte hypnotizes him, so that Koby essentially becomes Blackbeard's spy on the inside of the Navy? Now, that Lafitte being able to hypnotize someone hasn't been brought up in so long that if it were to have consequences now, especially with Koby, I think that would be very interesting. I think that'd be very interesting. If Oda wanted to play around with something like this, like, oh, Koby's been freed from Blackbeard's clutches, we have no idea why, and then we see Koby walking around as like this, Navy cyborg type of character where he's just hypnotized and he doesn't know what he's doing, and then it would have to take his own inner will, or him running into someone like Helmeppo or Garp or one of these characters, or maybe even Aokiji himself, to snap him out of his hypnosis. I think that's a very, very interesting scenario, and it would also showcase the deep levels of just how far that Lafitte's hypnotization can go to work on someone with that someone like Koby who has such high willpower. Like, I think that'd be very, very interesting. And so if Oda does go down this route, that would actually be a lot of fun. And for me, the most important thing, once again, going back to the earlier conversation, would be the character moment that Koby would end up having because of this. So if it leads to some more Koby character moment greatness, I'm down. I'm down for it. Next comment comes in from Hiba. I really like the idea of Koby and Blackbeard being somewhat in cahoots. They were speaking very casually to one another at Amazon Lily and seemed to have had some sort of prior engagement from the Rocky Port incident. I think it would be interesting if Koby wasn't kidnapped by Blackbeard at all and actually chose to go with him. My question to you would be, what do you think actually happened at Rocky Port, and what do you think Sword's relationship is with the Blackbeard pirates? I personally think that Aokiji is leader of Sword, facts, me too, and is working with Blackbeard as an undercover agent, and that is why Koby has been very casual with Blackbeard. Really enjoy your content, and this week's reaction to was amazing. Much love to you. Can't wait to watch your Afterthoughts video. Yo, much love to you as well. Thank you so much for watching that massive reaction. We spent like an hour reading the chapter, and so I most certainly appreciate you for having the time and patience to watch that, right? But in regards to your question, well, first and foremost, let me go back. Let me go back. I love the idea of something happening at Rocky Port, or something that happened at Rocky Port that is going to have direct consequences on whatever we're seeing here. I love that. I love that because it showcases the stuff happening around the world that we see off screen has direct consequences to stuff in the present, especially if it's something of this magnitude. And we just add more to wanting to see the Rocky Port incident, even more than I already do. The Rocky Port incident obviously is very, very important. It's been brought up at multiple different points. Now we see that even Blackbeard was there. Something huge happened there. When it comes to the idea of Koby being in cahoots with Blackbeard, for me it would have to be very similar to the Aokiji and Blackbeard scenario in Koby's own way, where Aokiji we all assume is in cahoots with Blackbeard because he's there to either gather intelligence or keep an eye on the most chaotic individual in the seas right now. Like, we don't know what his role is, but we know that he's there for a purpose and for a reason. If Koby were to be in cahoots with Blackbeard after the Rocky Port incident, like some sort of agreement was made there beforehand, then it would have to be something just like that, where they would be exercising their own justice by working together with this pirate, the world's most dangerous pirate at this point in time, in terms of him not caring about the individuals, right? Like, most of the other emperors at this point, I mean, we just know how Blackbeard is, right? Like, we know how Blackbeard is in regards to doing whatever means necessary in order to accomplish his goals. So he's a lot more dangerous in that regard. He's a true pirate in that way. But, or honestly, in every sense, he's a true pirate. That's what makes him such a great character. But them being in cahoots would have to have that type of thing to it. But the idea of all of this taking place at the Rocky Port incident, and then potentially stuff started cooking from then. Like maybe Aokiji and Koby already started cooking something up from all the way from Rocky Port. Like, yo, I made this agreement with Blackbeard, and Kuzan was like, yo, I got you. I'm gonna go in there, and they already started plotting from back then. I love that idea. Like, whatever happened in Rocky Port involved Koby, Blackbeard, Law, and I know Law being a sword member is a massive theory as well, so that would just add even more fire to that, right? But the potential of Aokiji potentially either being there as well, or that was whenever Aokiji decided to join Blackbeard. Like, the connections start all the way back then. That to me is very, very interesting, and I love that. I love that idea. So for me, whatever happened at Rocky Port has to go with that, has to go in line with that, with whatever Oda has cooking here, with the Aokiji and Koby storyline, whatever's going to happen here with their conversation, the consequences of that conversation, and what led Aokiji joining Blackbeard. That to me is what happened at Rocky Port. Like, that to me is the important part of what happened at Rocky Port. So it certainly does seem like that was a smaller version of sort of like God Valley, right? Where we had this massive scenario that we have no idea what happened, but we know it has a lot of consequences to the stuff taking place post-time skip. But to me, if stuff started cooking from all the way back then with Koby, Blackbeard, and Aokiji, where Aokiji and Koby were already, and considering that both of us are in that same line of thought of Aokiji being a member and or the leader of Sword, then it's like, man, yo, they're just pulling the rug on everyone. Like, yo, we've had this plan from the very start. He just fell into our trap by kidnapping one of the boys. So it's like, or it was always meant for Blackbeard to come in and kidnap him. I don't know, dude. But that's just so interesting. That's just such an interesting scenario. But that to me is the important part of what we should take from the Rocky Port incident. It's not necessarily like what happened there, but were Aokiji and Koby really plotting this from all the way back then? That to me is such an interesting possibility. So thank you for that, yo. The final comment, and I wanted to save this for last because it feels like every time I do a collaboration, especially in the last few weeks, I've brought this up. And I just want to get other individuals' thoughts on this idea, on what they believe is actually happening here. What is Oda cooking here? Because it's such a fascinating scenario. I've been thinking about this nonstop since chapter 1044 dropped, and especially after the bounty poster, and whenever we saw the first final saga, chapter 1054, with Luffy, like this in the color page, showcasing once again that he's not showing his eyes. Like, Luffy's not showing his eyes there. He's not showing his eyes in the bounty poster. He didn't show his eyes initially in 1044 during the Gear 5th pose. And then the final part of that chapter, which Oda knew was going to be one of the most reread chapters of the entire series, had Luffy finally showing his eyes and had double rings. Like, okay, so let's talk about this. Hellblazer04 comes in and says, "Hey coach, what's your thoughts about double-ringed eyes? Do you think these people could be some special race or something? As of now, there are only 3 characters double-ringed red eyes, and they are Mihawk, Instant Messenger Sama, and Gear 5 Goat with the coat. Is it possible this race is one of the 3 special races that Big Mom talked about?" Now, in regards to your question on this being one of the 3 special races Big Mom talked about, potentially. Absolutely could be the case. Going back to Mihawk, Instant Messenger Sama, and Luffy. Obviously, Hakuba, a few other characters also, we've seen with these double-ringed eyes, we just don't know if they're the exact same. But for these 3, for Mihawk, Instant Messenger Sama, and Luffy, the 3 that are always, they're synonymous with the ringed eyes at this point. For so long, after the Instant Messenger Sama reveal, it was always a connection to Mihawk. When 1044 dropped, and we got the reveal of not only his fruit and his abilities, but then it also finishes off with his eyes. And now, whenever the bounty poster gets published, and you do not get to see his eyes anymore, where he's holding them like this, and no one else can see it, so only the people who come into direct contact with Luffy are going to know that he has these eyes. Oda is obviously cooking something here in regards to the connections here with Luffy and specifically Instant Messenger Sama. What does it mean? It has ties to the Void Century, obviously. But one thing and one character that we also didn't get to see his eyes, that I would not be surprised also has him double ringed, is Don Quixote Doflamingo. Because Dofi is one of the only characters, and especially with the emphasis on his sunglasses and on never showing his eyes and covering his eyes in the same way, he knows so much about so much of this stuff. It's like, dude, if Dofi were to also have the double ringed eyes, and he knows the truth behind that, who else? Who else to have it, right? So then it really starts becoming like, what does this mean? Who are these individuals that have double ringed eyes? What are the things that connect them all? And so that to me is something that I just can't grasp, because I don't think it has, personally, a tie to a specific race. It could. It could be an ancestral thing where they all come specifically from this one particular branch of like individuals from back in the past. That could very well be the case. But Luffy attained this directly after awakening his ability and officially bringing the Nika Nika no Mi to the forefront, and with Gear 5. So it's like, that is what led to that. The chapter ended on that specifically, showing the eyes, where he was covering them for the entire rest of the chapter. And then we also don't see them on the bounty posters from then on out. Like, there's a reason why the eyes were covered. And it's like, I have no idea. Personally, I have no idea. All I know is that there is a connection. There is a connection specifically between Luffy and Im-sama. There's a reason why Im-sama's eye was the only thing shown from Im-sama, and why when Luffy was in Gear 5, we didn't see his eyes until that very last page. I do believe Oda wanted us to establish a connection there between those two characters. I definitely do believe that to be the case. Now, how does Mihawk and or Hakuba and potentially Doflamingo and whoever else has these double-ringed eyes, how do they come into play with this? I have no idea. But I do think that from now until the end, this should be something for all of us to keep in mind. I look forward to seeing all of your thoughts on this as well, for anybody who wants to add on to this in the comments section down below, because this is going to be very key down the line. I do believe that Oda does nothing for no reason. And for Luffy, I do believe, like I said before in previous Afterthoughts, and especially after the most recent chapter, where the one before the most recent chapter, 1058, where we had the bounty reveals, and we see that the Frankie poster could potentially have consequences down the line. Obviously we've seen that before with Sanji, and I do believe that the character that's going to have the biggest consequence in regards to their bounties and posters is going to be Luffy, because we do not see his eyes in the new bounty poster. So now when people see him who know the truth about these people with these eyes, who know, whatever happened in the Void Century, and they see that, they're going to be shook. They're going to be shook. And so that's whenever we're going to start putting the pieces together on what exactly these double-ringed eyes mean, and why it is that Oda puts so much emphasis onto it, not only when Instant Messenger Sama was revealed, not only for a character like Mihawk, not only if Doflamingo has that he never showed his eyes, and also for Luffy whenever he went into Gear 5 and we didn't see it until the final panel, or not seeing it all in the bounty poster. All of that is going to be connected in some way. There's something there. There's a missing piece. There's a missing portion of information that we just do not have. And I cannot wait to see what Oda's cooking for that in particular, because that fascinates me. That fascinates me so much. As someone who really, really loves Chapter 1044, and has reread it so many times, I know he did all of that for a reason, man. I know he did all of that for a reason. That is the most, insane chapter for not only stuff culminating up until that point, but also setting things up for the future. Oda's cooking something there, man. Just like he is with the rest of this chapter and with all of your other wonderful comments. So this has been the Afterthoughts for today. I want to thank everybody for submitting comments. I apologize if I did not get to yours. I wanted to get to as many as I possibly could. But this is where we're going to stop here for today. And I will see y'all for the next chapter reaction. It's going to be a great week, filled with even more awesome sauce. We have an anime episode that apparently is going to be a banger as well. So If the chapter's fire too, man, we're gonna be in there like swimwear, man. Cannot wait for the latest installment, for the next installment in the best-selling manga in history. But until then, y'all have a great one. Take care. Goat Piece is firing on all cylinders, man.